Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me this morning is a phenomenal woman that I actually connected with over the summer last year. We've been kind of, battling through schedules and things of that nature to work some things out. I reached out to her about being on the podcast, had a chance to learn a little bit about her, and I thought she would be a great fit to share with us. And we finally made that thing happen, and we're here today. She's taken time out of her very busy schedule to hang out with us to share a little bit of her journey with the hopes of encouraging and inspiring and uplifting. She is an author, she is a poet, but most importantly, she's a woman of God. And I'm so thankful that we didn't give up, trudging
Mhm.
along to make sure that we made this happen. I know I'm going to be blessed. I'm sure all of you who are tuning in are going to be blessed. So without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you our special guest today, Mr. Natashia Hagans. Natasha, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. My name is Natashia Hagans. I currently reside in Maryland, and I'm a teacher by day, and I also write, and I'm a poet as well.
Awesome, awesome. My in-laws actually live in Maryland, so I'm familiar with
Oh,
the
okay.
Maryland area. So yeah, it's pretty cool to connect with somebody from the area, and my mother-in-law happens to teach as well.
Oh,
So
she teaches as well.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
So we already connected right out the
Yeah.
gate. So yeah, so that's cool. That's cool. Well, Natasha, again, thank you so much for being on the show and giving us that snippet of a little bit about yourself. But we're gonna go ahead and jump right on into our segment so we can learn a little bit more about you and your journey. So, with that said, Natasha, anytime I bring people on, one of the things that I always like to take the opportunity to do, anybody who's ever tuned in to our show, I always like to set aside some time where we delve back into the beginnings of where our journey starts from, because I believe so many things take place, whether it's events that happen or people that we encounter as early as far back as our childhood, that while it may not always make sense, while we're not always able to put the pieces together, in those early stages of life, one of the things you learn further on as you gain more experiences and you begin to identify what your purpose in life is, now you begin to sort of connect the dots and things start to make sense as to why you had to go through what you had to go through, and the spaces and places that God has positioned you to be in. So with that said, I want to take this opportunity with you to ask if you would reflect back, take us back to the beginning days of your upbringing, and if you would share with us what was it like for you growing up, any fond memories that you have that you'd like to share about growing up, as well as if there was any particular challenges that come to mind, you could share those as well. Kind of give us the foundational basis for where your story begins.
Well, I was born in 1978 to Joe Higgins and Deborah Alexander. My earlier years, recall my mom always talked about us. We were very family oriented with both sides of my family. And for the first 2 years of my life, I lived in Norfolk, Virginia because my father was in the military. And we moved to Washington, D.C. And I remember fond memories with my grandmother. Smelling her lemon cakes and playing with my cousins with Barbie dolls and just very family oriented. Um, my parents divorced when I was 8 years old, and that's when things really kind of changed for a little bit because my dad was an absentee father, um, and it kind of was a traumatic experience because he would call us and not show up, and I think that made me become withdrawn at an early age, and I didn't really. It caused depression, and I didn't really know what it was at that time, but I was very withdrawn. But when he did show up, we had me and my brother came into the picture 6 years later after he was young. So he my parents got divorced when he was a baby, so he grew up with not seeing my dad at all. But it really affected me.
Wow, wow. Again, for first off, let me thank you for your transparency and
Yes.
sharing that. It can never be easy to, as a child, having to one experience your parents, parting ways by way of divorce, and then when you think about it, as you stated, in this case your dad, now going from being a person who was present in your life, and then
Mhm.
now divorce comes, and now he falls into a role of absentee father. So
Yes.
like as you shared, you're thinking maybe that he's going to come by, and then he doesn't come by, or
Mhm.
maybe you don't hear from him for extended periods of time, and it's unfortunate that that's a reality that a lot of us have had to go through, being in an
Yes.
absentee dad situation. You know, I I know I've had some personal experience with that, and many of our listeners that tune in, or
Mhm.
people I've had on the show before, have talked about that, and it's never easy to swallow. I don't want to per se pass judgment one way or the other on
Mhm.
the reasons
Yes.
behind your dad being
Mhm.
absentee, because again, and a lot of times we don't take the time to reflect on that. Sometimes that there may be some underlying pain, some underlying
Mhm.
things that
Yeah.
that stem back maybe even to his childhood,
Mhm. Right.
that maybe contribute to why his presence was lacking in your life. That doesn't mean that we excuse it, but it gives us an opportunity to understand it at
Yeah.
a different level. And of course, being a father myself of a daughter, I can't even imagine, especially considering the bond that I have with my daughter. I can't imagine, us having that sort of a strange relationship. So I appreciate when you speak about, highlighting the importance of, dads being in the lives of their children, be it a
Mhm.
daughter and or son. It does make a difference when you're not around.
It
And
does.
so yeah, so if you're battling with something personally, some past hurts or things like that, you would be better suited, to try to get some help in that area so that you can be healed from whatever it is that you're battling with. So then that by default allows you to be present in the lives of your children. We know that divorce is a thing that happens, and sometimes the relationship, the marriage just doesn't work out, but you don't want to have the children, suffer from that. And as you stated, you were in essence dealing with the withdrawal and even going through depression, but not even understanding
Yeah.
what
What
all of that meant,
next?
why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, and how it might impact decisions that you make later on in life and things of that nature. So, all of these things are key points that you bringing them up, and again, appreciate your transparency in doing so, because while these are difficult conversations to have, these are conversations that we need to have to bring back the importance and the awareness to the fact that that parent involvement still needs to be there, even if mom and dad are not, if you got to be cordial and on the same team for the sake of the children, do
Yeah.
that and let that be a separate issue from whether or not you and your significant other didn't work out. Don't let the children be penalized from that. And then the one other thing, of course, that I want to point out, which is of course is a positive thing, is I love the fact that you still talk, even in the midst of that, you still talked about that family environment that you kind of grew up in, and,
Mhm.
and and reflecting back on your grandmother, and I can just, as you were speaking about that, I think about my own grandmother, and
Yes.
one of the things that you remember a lot of times about those grandmothers is their ability to cook, and just the
Mhm.
smells of certain
Yes.
things that they made, and even after
Mhm.
decades later, you could still picture it in your mind and even smell it like as if it was right
Melody.
there in
Oh.
front of you. It's just crazy how that works, but that's just the advantage of having a family environment, even if things are not all picture perfect or what have you. Still having that closeness in place is relatively key. So again, thank you for sharing that. So Natasha, obviously you shared a little bit about childhood and some of the things that were produced from it as a result of the divorce and the absence of your dad. And as you venture off into adulthood, of course, there are going to be more experiences that come your way, and some good, some challenging, or what have you. But one of the things that you learn in life is if you live life long enough, every now and then there's a storm that will cross your path. There's a challenge or moment of adversity that will cross your path that's going to be a little bit heavier, a little bit more trying than the normal day to day nuances, if you will. So much so that when you find yourself facing that situation, you actually might have doubts. You might actually have
Yeah.
questions as to how am I going to make it through this? This is not something that I can just make a shift here, a shift there, and get my way around and get my way through. This is much, much heavier on me mentally, emotionally. It's weighing me down. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling burdened. I don't see a way out. Obviously, you're here today, so we can trust that even in those moments, God has made a way to navigate you through. But perhaps there was a time, there was a season in your life where you didn't quite feel so confident about that. So, if you would share with us a time that this is exactly the moment, the situation that you were in, where you didn't see a way out of a particular situation, a moment of adversity, a challenge in your way. Kind of walk us through what was that experience like for you, and what was ultimately the turning point where you began to see some light at the end of the tunnel in working your way through that situation.
Well, I want to piggyback to the absentee of my dad. He didn't come back into my life until I was 18 years old. But during that, after that time, we started to bond and have a better relationship. He moved back to Norfolk, Virginia, and we bonded well. But in 2015 and 2016, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer,
Mm,
and the hardest part of my time was both my grandmother had passed away in 2015. My grandmother that my father lived with, his mother, she died in 2015, and then my other grandmother died in 2016, and they were a very pivotal part of my life, and they were like my best friends, and I loved them very much, and that took a toll on me. But throughout that year, I was dealing with a lot of stress from work, my home life, and going to graduate school. It just took a toll on me, and I had a nervous breakdown, and my aunt took me into the emergency room, and well, I was um I was studying for my graduate school final exam, and I just stopped sleeping. I just stopped
mm,
sleeping, and it lasted for some days, and I still couldn't sleep. So I went into the emergency room, and they I was telling them my what was going on with me. I was not sleeping. I was having back pains, and they couldn't find anything at that time. So they evaluated me in the mental health ward, and they gave me some sleeping medicine, but that's I didn't go to any counseling. I didn't do anything about it. I just took the sleeping medicine, but um, after leaving there, the after effects of this drug, I mean, I started to lose hair. Um, um, Having thoughts of suicide, lost weight, having stomach issues, and it just took a very much toll on me. And I was still having stress. So in 2017, I had another nervous breakdown, and but my doctor evaluated me, and she told me that these side effects of this medicine was not good for me, and I believe that we as people should advocate for our mental health, and things that are going on with us, just don't keep it balled up inside. Go talk about it and go get the right help that you need. And she said, I can't continue to let you be on this medicine. It's not good for you. I lost a lot of weight. And so she told me to so for a week I went into another mental health facility where they evaluated me again, and I got the proper diagnosis of what was going on with me. I had high pulse rate, and I was suffering from depression and anxiety as well. But I got on the proper medication after I went into the mental health, and I started counseling. So I started counseling as well, and getting the proper techniques to help me with my mental health. So I started journaling, um, getting back into church like I was supposed to, put more trust into God, and doing meditation and finding a coach, which helped me a lot.
wow, wow. Again, let me first start off with thanking you for your transparency. So
Yeah.
many topics that you hit in this, just in that segment, that are key. First off, I like the fact that you pointed out how important it is for you not to allow things to bottle up
Hmm.
inside of you without having a healthy way to
A
basically
healthy
to
way to
release
be.
that out. Like you said, I mean, you're dealing with it starts like you said. You we went back to the fact that hey, dad wasn't around for these years, so we led with that withdrawal, led with that, you know, feeling some kind of way about yourself, and then you fast forward and you're getting into your graduate school days, and there's deaths that are happening in the meantime, and you're trying to handle the pressure of life and things that seem to be falling apart around you, and you're just kind of like you said, you're just kind of bottling it all up and not having a proper way to release, to the point where, like you said, you didn't have just one, you had
Right.
multiple nervous breakdowns.
Yes.
And and we hear people talk about that, but unless you have actually heard from somebody like yourself who's experienced such a thing, it totally makes sense why that would happen. And and again, keeping the things held up inside of you, the feelings, the emotions, the pain, the hurt, it's like the equivalent of holding poison inside of you and somehow thinking that that's
Mm-hmm.
going to help things. And then you did do the proper thing in seeking medical advice, but at first, we give you some medications that are causing crazy side effects, so that's a
Yeah.
whole nother subject for another day. But I'm thankful that that you were ultimately led to a doctor who saw that, hey, this is not helping things for you, in the sense of,
Yes.
it's almost like it's making it worse.
Hmm.
Here you are going days at a time without being able to sleep. Just the exhaustion that they puts on, again, physically, emotionally and mentally. I can only imagine what that experience must have been like. So, um, but with all of that said, what I do love is the fact that, one of the triggers that kind of led to you feeling some kind of way over the years, of course, with your dad. I love the fact that you had a moment of reconciliation. And so, to my listeners, understanding that, hey, even in an absentee parent situation, God can navigate a pathway for the two of you
For
to
you to come
to
back.
reunite, and you should welcome it. If a person is willing to try to make an effort, take a step, you should be willing to take a step as well, and not harbor, any
Hmm.
resentment or whatever.
No.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that you don't have a right to be mad or upset or disappointed, even at the fact that that person, that parent, might not have been around. But I'm thankful to know that you were willing to be receptive of that reconciliation, and that the two of you were able to kind of get back on good terms with one another. And so that's always good to hear. And then I like that you pointed out, the need, of course, to embrace counseling, because you
Yeah.
said, at first I hadn't really talked to anybody about anything. So, and you and I both know, particularly in the Black community,
Yeah.
for decades, we haven't been fans of
No.
therapy and counseling, because we
No.
oftentimes associate that being for the quote unquote crazy people. That is not for. We don't share our business like that. We're not
Mm-mm.
about being open and transparent, which is what makes what you're even doing today so powerful. Because had you not gotten not gotten counseling, not had the opportunity to reset your way of thinking and handling adversity and challenging moments, you wouldn't be equipped to be able to come on a show and be vulnerable as you're being so far, and
Yeah.
being transparent, because you wouldn't have had the confidence, the
No.
you wouldn't have felt right, because you would have felt like to do so would have made people look at you a
Mhm.
certain kind of way, that they'll look down on you, that they'll think something's wrong with you, when in fact you're just going through challenges and storms in life, just like we all do. Your
Yeah.
storm may not be my storm, but nobody is immune or excused from going through stuff. So, I appreciate you bringing in the therapy component, getting a coach to help you navigate through some things, just doing all of the healthy type of practices that are necessary. And but most importantly, that you did mention that I love, was that you saw that it was an opportunity also in the midst of the storm. It was an opportunity for you to reconnect, to reestablish your relationship with God.
Yes.
And again, so important, because what a lot of people don't understand is that, you know, God never means us harm. He never
Mm-mm.
means us any ill intent, but He does make decisions, oftentimes in our lives, where He will allow a storm to come our way, again, not to destroy us, because he
No.
obviously you weren't destroyed, not to take you out, not to humiliate you, but it's so at times he will allow that to take place because he's using it as an opportunity for you to draw near to him. You
Yes.
know, for you to stop trying to fix yourself or be dependent
Mm-hmm.
solely on a quick fix of let me take this pill or let me do this or that. You know, not, and again, not against anything against medical assistance or anything like that, but he ultimately wants you to depend upon him. And so I'm thankful that even in the midst of your storm, that there was that revelation, if you will, of you saying, you know what, I need to get back. I need to get back right with God. I need to reestablish and reignite that relationship with Him. Learn to be dependent upon Him, because as I know that you know, and I want my listeners to know who don't know, is that when you depend upon him, there's nothing too big that he can't handle.
Yes.
There's not a weight or a burden that he can't lift up off of you that we oftentimes try to, as I always talk about, we try to put on our own Superman or Superwoman capes and try to fix ourselves. And God is saying, look, give that thing to me. Give me that burden. Give me that weight, and let me navigate you through that. Let me make sure that even as you seek out counselors and medical staff or what have you, I can direct you to the people who are going to do right by you and not just feed you
Yes.
whatever, just to experiment off of you, or just to just
Mm-hmm.
get you in and get you out without really genuinely wanting to help you become better and restored and replenished. So all those key things that I'm kind of recapping that you said yourself, powerful, powerful, and I appreciate you sharing that, because this is these are the conversations we need to have. And you're advocating that, using your own
Yeah.
personal experiences and saying, hey, I done been here and done that. If you don't want to experience that for yourself, or you're
So
sitting around wondering why you're feeling off and out of sync,
this
these are
is
some of the
why.
key things. Yes, yes. So thank you for sharing that. So with that said, when you do find yourself facing such adverse moments, challenging times, obviously you share some heavy stuff, but
Mhm.
sometimes it's heavy like that, and sometimes it's just life, and sometimes it's just day to
Yeah.
day nuances that we deal with or go through. So with that said, when you do find yourself facing challenging times, what is it that you personally like to do that kind of works best for you? If this is just one of them days where I'm faced with some adversity of some kind, how do you like to work through that? What is your routine, your regiment that kind of works best for you, that you can do so in a healthy and a productive way? If you would kind of share that with us.
Well, I just lost my father in September. But
Mm,
what I would say to each and every one of you that are dealing with or facing something in this time, it's okay to rest. It's okay to rest, and you don't always have to be doing things all the time. And rest in God. And what works for me, as I was telling you before, is writing. That's what helped my healing process after I had the nervous breakdown in 2017. And it helped me find new passions for myself by writing poetry. And it just opened up another door for me that I didn't even know that was there. Just sitting still with God and listening to doing meditations, doing chakras, doing yoga. Really was therapeutic for me. It was writing and doing art and getting them feelings out through my art and through my writing.
wow, wow. And it's interesting that you bring up about the writing. Of course, I made mention of that obviously at the beginning of the show. You being an author, you being a poet, being a poet. Um, again, sometimes part of that storm, those storms that we go through, sometimes we have to go through them in order to crack open what your ultimate purpose is. Because you just said yourself that you use writing, journaling, poetry as a way of release. And
Yes,
so if you're doing that as a way of release for yourself, if anybody has, had the opportunity to check out any of the works that you do, your works are about encouraging and inspiring others. So
yes,
you're in essence taking your pain, using this tool to release from that pain, but at the same time, you're creating a work that people can take on for themselves and use to be healing for them. To use for them
yes.
to have that release. And so
Hmm.
maybe you don't understand that that's what your purpose is if you don't go through what you went through. maybe it
Yeah.
doesn't have the
Yeah.
same impact if
Impact.
you didn't have to feel
Feel
what
it.
pain
Yeah.
feels like, to
Hmm.
what a true hurt, a true, what does loss look like when you lose loved ones, grandmothers, parents. What does that really feel like when you go through breakdowns? What does that really feel like when you feel neglected and abandoned? What does that really feel like for you to not only verbalize it, but then to be able to put it in a creative writing form for others, for the world to be able to tap into and share as well? That's a powerful thing. That's not just some random thing that you wake up one morning and say, I'm going to be a writer, I'm going to be a poet. you know a lot of times, and that's why when I said earlier in our conversation about, we have to kind of go back to the beginnings and see, where does this all build up, where's the root to it all,
Yeah.
in order for it to piece together and make sense later on in life. Why am I even doing what I'm doing today?
Hmm.
And what led me to this point? Because otherwise, if we had constructed it on our own path and our own, under our own vices, we don't necessarily say, when I grow up, I want to write poetry. When I grow up, I want to write books to inspire people. Usually there has to be something that happens within us that pushes
Let us
us,
there.
that
Yeah.
led us in that direction. And that's God's hands on all of that. That's what helps us to define ourselves and understand where our identity is. Specifically our identity in Christ, why he created us to be who he's created us to be, so we can do the works that he's designed for us to do. And understand that there's an enemy out there who doesn't like you to find what your purpose is, doesn't
Hmm.
want you to do things like you spoke about just a moment ago, about in the midst of trials and tribulations, doesn't want you to take rest. He wants you to stay up and
Hmm.
worry and stress about it and freak out about it and create fantasies in your head about how things are going to play out. We if we're not careful, we'll inject thoughts and scenarios that don't even exist,
This. Yeah.
but we'll
That's.
make them exist in our head
Hmm.
and stress ourselves 2-3 times more than what the situation even started out as. We make it worse than what it even really is.
Yes.
A thing that the enemy loves for us to do. But if we sometimes just take a moment of rest, take a moment of pause, take an opportunity to release, to flush out, whatever it is that's going on with us, as you shared, it's okay. And I talk about this all the time. It's okay for you to feel some kind of way about the situation that you're up against,
Hmm.
whether that's feel some kind of way to the point that you want to shed some tears, that you want to scream, that you want to punch a bag, whatever that is, get it out. But
Yes.
then now that you've released, now I'm open, now I'm receptive to hear whatever it is that God has to share with me. I can hear him now. I'm listening. He has my undivided attention, but he doesn't have that if I haven't taken that time to rest, to pause, to sit still for a moment, and gather myself, get
Oh.
my emotions in check. So now that I can draw in, now that I can receive what it is that he has for me to take on. So all of those things are key, that you mentioned, and again, thank you for sharing that, because we really need to be mindful of that as we deal with our moments of adversities and our trials and our tribulations. And there's no one way, no perfect one way of
No.
facing those things. What Natasha just shared is just one of many ways.
One of
But
many ways.
you got to have a way. You got to have a way, and it
Away.
needs to be a healthy way, and it ideally should be a way that involves God too. Because
Yes.
if you don't understand, the more you leave God out of your situations, out of your both your trials as well as your good times, then you're denying yourself blessings. You're denying yourself that help, that support, that encouragement, that love that only he can provide to you. You're cutting that off for yourself when you don't have to. You're taking on burdens that you don't have to take on. He's willing to
Yeah.
embrace that from you. So again, appreciate you sharing that. So
Thank
Natasha, if you had the opportunity, if you could sit across the younger version of Natasha, the Natasha who, was at one point in life was going through, not releasing, taking on all the pressure, all the weight, not having an outlet to pour it into somebody else, what you got going on, whether it's a counselor, whether it's God, whether it's whoever. You're just walking around carrying it all in you to the point to where you're just about to explode, so to
you.
speak. If you could speak to that younger Natasha that was doing that, or just taking into consideration that somebody right now is tuning into our episode and they're right in that situation that younger Natasha used to be in. They're holding it in. They're carrying that weight around. They're trying to be tough. They're trying to be quote unquote strong, but they're being eaten up inside. and the pressure's getting more and more on them. They feel like they're at that breaking point. They feel like they're there at that give up point. What would be your words of encouragement, your words of inspiration to those listeners as well as to younger Natasha? What would you have to say that you think would be key in navigating situations like that?
My to my younger self, I would say to let go, to have not let it all be bottled up inside, to speak to people and not just have spoken up a little bit more. And as for other people, as you were just saying, you don't always have to be the strong one, the resilient one. Let's just, what about being in our soft era? And it's okay to rest and to speak to people about what's going on in your life. And you don't always have to. Strong doesn't always mean that it's good. I mean, it's a time to rest. It's a time to be resilient. It's a time to be strong. But it's going to be okay, and God is with us all the time. So that would be my message to my younger self and to anyone out there that's struggling right now, to go talk to someone. If you if it's a family or friend, just get out your emotions and what's talk about what's going on with you. Just release it because it holds up in your body. If you don't release it, it's going to hold up in your body, and you can end up having serious health issues that you don't want to have.
Very well said. Very well said. You gotta let it out. You gotta
Yes,
find that outlet to let it out. Again, you want it to be a healthy outlet because
a
sometimes
healthy outlet.
if we're not careful and we let out the wrong way, that could cause harm to us as well as to others. But
Others too.
but again, let that thing out, put it all out on the table, and then once you have it out of your system, once you've released those 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 anxieties, those fears, those stressors, those worries. Now, again, as we talked about earlier, now you've opened yourself up to receive what God has for you, and and I can't emphasize enough that that's really the starting point that you want to go to is see what He has to say about it. Let Him give you that comforting. Let Him give you that encouragement. Let Him give you that direction and that guidance. And again, if you don't know who to go to, like when we talk about a therapist or whatever, if you don't know, God will direct that person to you,
Direct that.
just like He directed the right medical person to you that saw you as being a human and not just something to prod and poke on and
Yes.
and feed medicine to. He'll open those doors. He'll direct you to the right family member, the right friend to share.
Friends.
Because if we're being honest, if we're keeping it real, every
Mm-hmm.
friend and even every
And
family
every
member
family
are
member
not somebody that we can release certain things
really
to
certain things
because
to.
they're not going to be able to relate. They're not going to be able to identify. They're not going to be able to come alongside us the way that we need to have that. God can even use a perfect stranger, that
Yes.
somebody
You're
that you've
right.
never
That's
met.
so true.
He can make that connection with that perfect stranger that you didn't see coming. You had no idea that you don't know them from a can of paint and they don't know you. But God can make that connection and they'll be able to pour into you. So you just never know, but you got to open
Never know.
yourself up. But more importantly, open yourself up to the right one, and it begins with Him. It begins with Him. Don't minimize that. Don't water that down, and let Him give you that direction, give you that guidance, so that way you don't feel that you're just trying to fight life's challenges and storms all by yourself, because you
Yes.
don't have to do it all by yourself. Don't let
Never.
anybody make you believe that you have to do it all by yourself. And I love that you pointed out about understanding what true strength is. Oftentimes true strength is you admitting that you
Do it
can't do
all.
it by yourself.
No.
That's really an example of true strength. Not you fronting like as if you got it all under control and that you can handle everything. We while God has created us to be able to navigate and do certain things, on our own, we were not made to be invincible. There's going to be a weight, there's going to be a pressure, there's going to be a storm that's just simply too big for you. And that doesn't make you weak, that doesn't make you soft, that doesn't make you less than just because you can't take it on all by yourself. You weren't
Yeah.
meant to. And
Mm-mm.
and and as I shared earlier, sometimes God will let that storm linger, linger around for a while just to show you that you were
Yeah.
not built to do this by
By
yourself.
yourself. Yeah.
So let it go. Be be transparent. Be vulnerable. And say I can't do this, and call upon Him to guide you accordingly, to lead the way, and you're gonna be all right. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna be all right, and that's not something that just sounds good to say,
No.
unless you've experienced it and know God for yourself, and you've had that moment where you turned it over to Him, that thing that was too big, that thing that was too insurmountable for you, and when you've done that willingly and trusted, and you saw Him do a thing, I'm telling you, I'm telling you, and I know Natasha can co-sign on this. I'm telling
Yes.
you that He will not only work that thing out, but He'll do it in a way that was way far and beyond
Way
anything that you
for
could have ever
ever imagined.
imagine.
Yes.
You couldn't have put it to words. You won't be able to say that I was, that it was luck, that it
Mm-mm.
just by chance happened. You won't be able
No,
to say
no.
any of those things because it'll be so clear that it was Him that you'll understand, and then you begin to trust Him with more and more and more, and He'll begin to bless and bless and bless and make ways out of no way, and be there for you like never before, because that's who He is. He unconditionally loves us. And so that's why, I wanted to make sure I highlighted that, about that word strength, because
Right.
so oftentimes, both men and women,
Mm.
I'm strong, I'm tough, I don't want to look soft, I don't want to look weak, I don't want, that miss let's get up off of that
Mm-hmm.
and understand what's weak is when when you're not willing to admit that you need help.
Yes.
What doesn't seem logical, what doesn't make sense, is when you know you're hurting, but you're too proud. You're letting your pride get in the way to admit that you're hurting, that you need somebody or something to be there for you, to offer the support that you don't have. So you gotta let it go. As you said, you gotta be willing to
Let
let
it.
that thing go. Let go and let God. I mean, may
Yes.
sound cliche, but there's some realness to it. There's some
Realness to
realness
it.
to it. If you
Yes.
know, you know. So that's
Yes.
what it comes down to. So Natasha, this has really been an awesome time with you,
Thank you.
and what you're sharing. Some very powerful story. And I anticipated you were going to have a powerful story. Anytime, and and I say this really because anytime there's a challenge, when I have a situation where I'm trying to get a guest on, and we're running into conflicts and situations, or
Mm-hmm.
if we get on and there's some crazy technical difficulties that never happen, some weird stuff. For me, that's just a signal that there must be a powerful message that is to be said today, and the enemy doesn't want it to happen. And so,
Yes.
once again, God is undefeated, and He made a way for you to be here to share as you've shared, so transparently, so openly, and that I am definitely appreciative of. I have been
Thank
blessed.
you.
My listeners have been blessed. I feel confident in saying that on their behalf, and and again, I just appreciate you pouring into us as you have. But as is customary here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, before I do let you go, I want to take an opportunity to celebrate you, to love on you, to uplift you. So if you would share with us if you got anything professionally and or personally that's going on now or coming up down the road that we need to know about, that we need to celebrate, that we need to acknowledge, please share that with us, because we want to, again, lift that up, lift you up, and find out how we can be supportive and connect with it in any kind of way. So, what can we look forward to from Natasha that's coming up that we need to be aware of and know about?
Well, I'm currently a poet, but I have several books on Amazon. My first book, Poet Rebirth Unfolding of the Mind Through Poetry, is going through my journey of how I found my passion for poetry. And then I wrote a journal called Butterfly, and I have several other anthologies I've been in, but I'm currently be, dedicating the book to my father who passed away, and how people can go through grief while losing their parents, and it's called Golden Wings that I'm currently writing. So you can look for that in the summertime.
Awesome, awesome. So
Yes,
your books people can find on Amazon. I don't know if
Amazon.
okay, and I don't know if do you have a site or anything that people can go to, or what's the
No, I
best way
don't
for
have
people
a
to follow
site.
you on social media, to keep up with anything that you got going on?
Tasha Hagans on Facebook and Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome,
Right.
awesome, awesome. Well, again, Natasha, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It has been a pleasure. To my listeners, she's giving you the information. Follow her on social media. She's already got products out, already got books out, and she's already told us something is coming up later in the summer,
Yes.
dedicating it to her father. I definitely have mad respect for that. So again, thank you for being who you are, and we're just praying for God's favor over your life and all your works that you do, and allowing Him to continue to lead you down the path of purpose that He created for you to be in. And again, I'm expecting to hear more and more exciting and wonderful things that are coming from you, both now and in the future. So it has been a pleasure having you aboard. And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our podcast today, if you've been blessed, by the testimony that has been shared, and just overall what we're trying to do here, please subscribe, please share, please comment, please like, because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about. We
Yeah.
want to encourage, we want to uplift, we want to inspire, being transparent, being vulnerable with the sharing of our stories, with the hopes of being able to drop some gems, drop some nuggets on you that you can apply to your respective situations. Because the reality is we all go through challenges, we all go through adversities. You're not alone in this. We
No.
all go through it, but at the end of the day, the starting point of it all, that helps us get through these challenging times, is it goes back to you having a relationship with God. And I'm here
Yes.
to tell you, if you don't currently have one at this time, today is a mighty fine day to make that decision. And it'll be the greatest decision that you ever make, because He is all knowing, all powerful, all loving, wants nothing but the best for you. He desires, he wants that relationship. And so I would encourage you to embrace it. Again, it'll be the best thing that you ever do. And we're not telling you something that we heard, we're telling you something that we know.
No.
And so don't miss out on that opportunity. Don't feel like you have to continue to do life all by yourself, all on your own, carrying those weights and burdens on your shoulders. He is willing to take that off of your lap, and in exchange for that, give you a rock solid, unwavering promise that everything is going to be worked out just fine in His will and His way and His perfect timing, thereby giving you that rest that we talked about, giving you that peace that we
Hmm.
talked about. You can get back to, as they say on TV, you can get back to your regularly scheduled program. You get back to doing the work that He has for you to do, and stop prioritizing the stress and the pressures and the worries of something else over here, that we could be handing that off to Him and allow Him to be God all by Himself and do His
Yes.
thing with that. So with that said, remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and I thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, continue to fight that good fight. Continue to engage and build that relationship with God. He wants it with you. He wants so much for you. He has so much in store for you. Don't miss out on the blessings. Don't miss out on the opportunity to be equipped to be a blessing for others, so you can walk in that purpose and live the life that God intended just specifically for you. I look forward to seeing you next time when we air. And until then, you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.